I asked you to kind of come up with 3 things that were kind of major points in your life. And I'd love to kind of go into that a little bit.
Sure.
First one was obviously your born again experience. Can we kind of step back a little bit before that? Because I know you kind of you've shared as you've been in the pulpit a couple times about where you were when we said we found Jesus now. Jesus found us,
Sure.
And so we're kind of walk into that of going into that transformation.
Sure, absolutely. So as you spoke of, for soldiers when they came back, my dad never held a job very, very long. If he did, it was for a very short amount of time, and he just never worked. And it's not because he didn't want to; he just didn't. Right? There were mental struggles that came with that, and so on and so on. So with that being said, when my mom and dad split, my mom was left to take care of me and my brother. And so she worked 2 jobs, and we went through some very hard times, which, a lot of families have. And so I would still go see my dad on weekends and, in the summertime. And even though my dad didn't work, my stepmom, bless her heart, she's still my stepmom to this day. She is the one that was kind of the provider for the family,
Okay.
and my dad he just stayed at home. So I had because of that dynamic, I was able to stay with my dad a lot, and my dad drank a lot. He was not a mean individual, but he was a very happy-go-lucky individual in a lot of ways, but he always had a drink in his hand. And so I was raised up in that, and we'd go to family functions and family picnics and birthday parties, and everyone's social drinking, and then, then the social drinking becomes more, and then everyone's up to the wee hours of the morning, and we're all drinking, and I grew up in that. So whenever I got of age, actually before I became of age, I started sneaking beer and drinking and things of that nature, and as life progressed, and I stepped into manhood and met my wife, I was drinking every day, and I was at a point where I was drinking 2, 3, 6-packs a day, and that was easy. That wasn't a difficult thing to me. That was the norm, and I guess I was what the world would classify as a functional alcoholic.
Okay.
I went to work every day. I paid my bills. I kept my house right. I kept my cars right. Everything was in order, just I was drunk every day.
Sure.
And so when the hour came that I came to Christ, I knew it was time that I had to walk away from that. And I had drank enough for long enough that I was tired of not feeling good. I was reaching a point where I was drinking in the morning. Before I even went to work, I would drink a couple of beers with some ibuprofen just to knock the edge off, and so I could just go to work. And I didn't want it anymore. And when I was at Foursquare Church,
Can I back up? Were you guys? So before you met Tammy, were you going to church already?
no.
So was it after you were married that you started
Yes.
going? So how about, because you didn't did you get saved the first day you went to church?
I don't want to say the first day. Well, yeah, I guess in a sense, because my mom was going to this church.
Okay.
And
so
she
if
was.
you could lead us into that, what even got you to go to church first day?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was
So here we are.
that? Okay.
I'm drinking, right? My wife was okay with occasional drinking, but she was not okay with the daily drinking. And when we first got together, we fell in love, and we knew we wanted to be together. But she always kept making statements along the lines of, you're going to have to stop drinking.
Yeah.
If you're going to drink a little bit every now and then or whatever, she's like, I can live with that. But man, you could put it down,
Yeah.
And so that was kind of that became a wedge into our lives very quickly. And as 2 young people that were in love, she kind of had some dysfunctional things happen in her home, the same way I did.
Yeah.
And so our perception of marriage and living together, we were both very selfish. And so when you add selfishness and alcohol together, it can lead to a lot of arguing and a lot of fighting. And that's what was happening. And so we had already, she was pregnant. She had our son, and we were constantly fighting with each other. And she was at a point like, look, I don't know that I want to do this with you anymore because you won't stop drinking. Now you have to understand, I was still going to work.
Yeah.
I was I was not a mean person.
Yeah.
I was not hurting anybody or doing anything. I was just drunk every day.
Yeah.
And so I got tired of the fighting, and I kept having this pull that I just needed to get back to church. I just knew, just something on the inside kept telling me, if I could just get back into church, that somehow, some way, God could straighten all this out. I couldn't even explain it.
Yeah.
I just knew this pulling, and it's probably because my grandmother and my mother were always praying for me. You know,
I hear you.
You know, and so
I tell these moms all the time when I'm in the pulpit, it's like, don't stop praying.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was like, well, he's long gone. No, he's not.
No. And so I remember going to the church, and I remember sitting next to my mom, and Pastor Eddie Linhart was his name. And, man, he got up and just started preaching. Man, I'd say probably about 10, 15 minutes into his sermon. I mean, man, the fire of God just came on this man, and he was preaching, and it was so powerful and so compelling. And I mean, I could not get to this altar quick enough. No. You know what I'm saying? And man, when he had an altar call, I mean, I couldn't stop the tears from flowing. And I mean, I couldn't get up to the altar quick enough. And I remember kneeling down, and man, he knelt down with me, and he prayed with me, and he led me through the sinner's prayer, so to speak. And I confessed some things in line with his words. And then he finished praying over me. And, man, all I can tell you is that man's hands were loaded because, I mean, you could just, I mean, it was just, I can't even, words couldn't describe how powerful it was. And when I stood up that day, when I turned around and walked away, I knew I was saved. I knew I was going to heaven. This heaviness, the burdens, the what the Bible refers to, the yoke, it was destroyed. And I didn't know that terminology then. All I knew is I was a young man who just experienced something very supernatural. And I knew that day I was not going to hell. And I had felt a freedom and a love and a mercy that I had never experienced before in my life. And, man, I became hungry for it. And that's when my journey began with the Lord.